Don't have to ask what day it is because every day in crypto is we're all going to become millionaires from ISO 20022 apparently. Today we're going to be diving a little bit into what actually is happening with ISO 20022, what's actually coming up with Swift, how this ties in blockchain and distributed ledger, how it potentially ties in maybe your favorite crypto assets. But there is a ton of rhetoric out there and a lot of clickbaity type stuff. So we're going to be tackling that. We're also going to tackle two massive stories that just came out today from the Hedera ecosystem. The first is verifiable AI with NVIDIA and Accenture for the government and defense sectors in the UK and in Europe, which is a pretty gigantic announcement, which we covered about a month and a half ago. But there's been some new developments there. We're also going to be talking about Project Acacia and the Reserve Bank of Australia and Hedera's integration there as well. Buckle up. I wanted to start with this and just say we did a pretty decent deep dive into crypto and just the strides that the industry's made in kind of moving from like the just a hold forever mindset to actually utilizing crypto on a daily basis. So a lot of kind of the card options from a debit standpoint that exist out there, whether it be Coinbase or Binance. So there's a bunch of networks tied into this. I think we tackled Algorand, Avalanche. I think XRPL's in here, XDC's in here, Hedera's in here. We tried to getting as many as we could, MasterCard and Immersive. So there's Algorand, there's some decent stuff in here. If you guys want to read through this, go to genfinity.io. But it's a pretty big article just talking about, point of sale, the strides made it, POS for POS transactions and digital assets, debit cards and everything else. So, but I wanted to kind of focus on this first, and let me find it. At the Raise AI Summit in Paris, Equity Lab announced a breakthrough deployment of its verifiable compute framework on NVIDIA's new Blackwell architecture. This is the full article here. I'm not going to read verbatim this article for you, but I'm just going to go over what's in it. This isn't just a new artificial intelligence stack. This is a hardware-anchored governance layer for agentic AI. Hedera is playing a key role in this. Equity is using confidential compute. It's called verifiable compute, basically, what's tying in Hedera here, on NVIDIA Blackwell, creating secure enclaves for agentic artificial intelligence models that need to follow strict legal and ethical rules. The result of this is over 400,000 times faster performance for cryptographic verification. So now artificial intelligence actions can be verified in real time without compromising performance. These verified operations, every policy check, every decision are then logged on Hedera, giving us a public tamper-proof record of artificial intelligence behavior. Equity is not doing this alone, though. This is a four-way collaboration, which is interesting because we just saw kind of the Accenture partnership type aspects maybe about a month and a half ago. So all this stuff ties together. All these announcements that have been going on for the past year and a half are tying together now. NVIDIA is going to be providing the hardware. Scan UK supplying sovereign GPU cloud infrastructure. Accenture public sector testing the stack for government and defense use cases. You'll see the individual that's quoted in this article here. And Hedera providing the DLT backbone for immutable, auditable policy registration. Accenture's artificial intelligence lab, which is interesting because I remember when the Equity Lab Accenture stuff, or the Accenture stuff came out like a month and a half ago, I was like, this relationship has to be a little bit older because there's not normally like deployments or partnership announcements with startup companies and a behemoth like Accenture, unless some other stuff has went on. And a few years ago, I think it was like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, there was trials at this Brussels lab. So let me move on from here. Accenture's AI lab in Brussels is already deploying this in public sector trials, which means Hedera is now already being used to govern sovereign AI, support pre-certification of agentic behavior, and register all of it cryptographically on the hash graph. Not a pilot. It's the foundation of a new model where AI policy and cryptographic trust can converge. So I'm going to go through a couple of interesting things within this. You guys can go and do some deep diving into this if you want to. But just for some more context, so this is a quote from the Equity Lab press release that just came out today. With multi-agentic architectures increasingly handling sensitive workflows across organizational boundaries, sovereignty isn't just about data or computational residency. It's about pre-certifying and registering before deployment that autonomous AI agents operate within defined legal, ethical, and geographical parameters. This is Brian Rich, Global AI Lead for Public Sector and Health at Accenture. Again, Brian Rich, who is the Global Artificial Intelligence Lead for Public Sector and Health at Accenture. This is Brian's LinkedIn here as well, and you can see he's been supporting Hedera for a while now. So Hedera hosted a panel today during Davos, The Future of AI, Advancing Decentralized Technologies. Senior Managing Director of Global Artificial Intelligence, Lead for Health, Public Sector, and Defense, which is obviously getting into some government stuff there. So found that to be pretty big. I'm going to move on to the next major one that we're going to get into, ISO 20022. But this is another major Hedera-powered milestone, this time coming out of Australia. Now, there are multiple participants in this, so I'm going to zero in on the Hedera portion. I think I want to say another digital asset network because I was getting emails for this. I want to say Red Belly. Has anybody heard of Red Belly? I haven't done like a super deep dive into them, but I was getting a couple of emails about Project Acacia and them. So you might want to do a dive into that and see if you can find what that's about, but I'll focus on the Hedera part here. This is on July 10th, Australian Payments Plus. So if you guys have watched the older videos, AP Plus was essentially a convergence of, I want to say, NPP Australia and EFTPOS, which are EFTPOS is the ACH system. So like the Automated Clearinghouse of Australia. They converged into Australian Payments Plus. But anyways, Australian Payments Plus, which is a Hedera council member, was selected, and who we know EFTPOS has done trials with micropayments and all sorts of other stuff with Hedera in the past, was selected additionally to continue on with Project Acacia. We saw kind of a couple of months ago the first batch of participants. This is kind of a continuation here, which is a wholesale tokenization research initiative from the Reserve Bank of Australia, which is the Central Bank of Australia, and the Digital Finance Cooperative Research Centre. The mission is to explore how digital money and tokenized assets can be settled on a shared distributed ledger infrastructure. One of the infrastructures is going to be Hedera for these tests. You can see AP Plus selected to participate in RBA's tokenization pilot. This is right from AP Plus. All right. Project Acacia is the continuation of Australia's 2023 CBDC pilot, which it says right within here. So we know there were trials a couple of years ago as well. This is saying, building on the success of a 2023 central bank digital currency pilot, the project will develop and test use cases for settlement and tokenized asset markets with input from industry participants. What they're going to be focusing on is 3 real-world use cases or 3 technology kind of pillars within this. The first is going to be interoperability across digital money types, including CBDCs, deposit tokens, so bank deposits, or stable coins, all operating together. The next is designing settlement coordination tools for different tokenized asset platforms. And the third is using Australia's real-time payments platform, or NPP, to settle these tokenized assets and comparing that to DLT-based settlement, including Hedera. The Reserve Bank of Australia estimates that tokenization could save up to $13 billion in Australia's native currency per year in capital markets. And AP Plus is in a position to make that happen by anchoring wholesale financial transactions on networks such as Hedera. To be clear, AP Plus is not offering crypto. It says it right within this as well. They're working with regulators and central banks to build compliant, secure settlement rails for real-world assets, with Hedera as the underlying trust layer, or one of the underlying trust layers within these trials here. So closing with the Hedera stuff before we move to the ISO 20022 stuff, Equity Lab, NVIDIA, Accenture, all coming together to build AI trust infrastructure on Hedera, potentially for the health sector, potentially for the public sector, potentially for the defense sector. Australian Payments Plus and the Reserve Bank of Australia, as well as NPP and others, are testing national scale tokenized financial markets on Hedera. In both cases, Hedera is not just the distributed ledger, it's the infrastructure to basically the verifiability layer for artificial intelligence, money, and for government's infrastructure. We're watching a shift where, Hedera and others obviously are, these preferred additional layers of value add within like the traditional system that add either compliance, performance, auditability ties in with compliance. There's just, it's kind of like the value add into the traditional system, and this is what we see with all of these trials kind of going on right now. It's why we see European Central Bank doing what they're doing with the digital euro from the wholesale standpoint. It's a reason they're doing wholesale first too, because B2B, it's you actually kind of have to force through certain layers of like the regulation for the B2B stuff. You have to make sure you're taking into account privacy and all the compliance stuff, because these banking entities like deal with compliance at the core. Anyways, let me move into ISO 20022 day, which is every day on crypto Twitter. Fedwire ISO 20022 migration is now set for July 14th. And I've seen people just like saying like, let's go XRP. I'm not saying it was on this tweet. Algorand, ISO 20022 to the moon, XRP to the moon, HBAR to the moon. All of this stuff with ISO. Okay. I guess the only reason I'm not going to go super into the weeds with this just because it's kind of a waste of my time. But so Swift's ISO 20022 migration, like the actual Swift system, migrates over from the MT, which is the old school messaging format, into MX, which is the ISO 20022 messaging format standard. ISO 20022, I will say that I've seen even banking individuals, and I was trying to find a tweet from myself here, but I'm not going to do super into the weeds. I tried adding this in at the end of this video. There's been a couple of like actual individuals from like banking entities that have referred to ISO 20022 cryptos. And it's like in actual documents that say that. I think it's a semantics game. Actually, I know it's a semantics game. They're just kind of moving past what ISO 20022 integration would actually mean. ISO 20022, like I said, it's a messaging standard, and like Ripple payments, I'm assuming, are ISO 20022 compliant. So like that means that whatever payment infrastructure is there, Ripple payments, and I'm making an assumption here, has built out the infrastructure and the architecture of Ripple payments to meet the compliance of this new messaging standard, which is ISO 20022. Doesn't mean that XRP is an ISO 20022 asset. However, it means that if you have compliant payment infrastructure that meets ISO 20022, you can certainly settle on top of that compliant structure or infrastructure with a digital asset, with XRP or with HBAR or with USDC or with whatever's operating on top of that compliant structure that meets ISO 20022 standards. And it's called PAIN. You can actually look it up. It's just payment instructions. You can have like a PAIN settlement, PAIN, lowercase, for like payment instructions on top of that ISO 20022 infrastructure. Anyways, without the semantics and everything else. So there's no digital asset that's inherently ISO 20022. Anybody that's telling you that is wrong. Or they're just bypassing what I just told you and just not playing the semantics game. I don't think that these cryptocurrencies that happen to be on platforms that meet ISO 20022, like for example, HBAR, we found out, and I think I broke it like 2 years ago, that HBAR's Hedera consensus service can be used in tandem with an ISO 20022 compliant platform, which was MTech. And I think it was either MTech's, I don't know if it was like the stablecoin studio stuff that maybe they were doing through Hedera, or it was just MTech's. What do they have? Like they had like a CBDC initiative where like banks can come and trial out CBDCs in a sandbox. So HBAR, or Hedera Consensus Service, I should say, operated in tandem with an ISO 20022 compliant infrastructure. But I see all the time like there's like these ISO coins, and actually like even one of the individuals, and I wish I could have found it, but it was from like maybe a year ago. I found it, and I posted on Twitter. Somebody could probably find it. It was an individual that I think was like a business development manager or something at one of the banking entities, and he referred to ISO coins. I think he referred to Algorand. I think he referred to XRP. I think he may or may not have said HBAR in his speech, but I know he referred to, what is the other one that always gets brought up? IOTA. I think even like IOTA was on there, just taking like the low hanging fruit of them. Anyways, without the semantics game, there are platforms that can meet ISO 20022 from a messaging compliance standpoint. And then you can settle digital assets on top of that compliant platform if you want, basically, right? But it doesn't have to be XRP. It doesn't have to be HBAR. It can be literally any digital asset that the platform supports. So when we say ISO 20022 assets, I'll just warn you with a big caveat that there's probably going to be, right now there's what, 20 million cryptocurrencies. Let's even just say the top 100 cryptocurrencies or 200, or 5 years from now, if 75 or 100 of them are actually integrated, like, you're going to be able to settle on top of ISO 20022 compliant platforms with, like, if you want to do set payment instructions with anything you want. So it's like, I don't know. I don't get the big idea of it. But anyways, bigger deal. And let me preface it this way too. So I have seen older documents. I do believe 1,000% that the ISO 20022 stuff, after enough digging back in the past and seeing what we're seeing now, is to get all of these traditional messaging systems on a level playing field to allow for something like distributed ledger technology, or allow for blockchain integration, or allow for agentic AI for payment flows or whatever. You need standardized messaging to be able to like upgrade the system for faster, settlement using distributed ledger. It just makes sense, right? So yes, it ties in, but it's like an indirect tie-in, but it's like a stepping stone that has to be there before you move on to the next part, which is like, let's start using digital assets for, everything. That probably does. I probably just rambled for 5 minutes and provided no value to you guys, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, you're going to continue seeing ISO 20022 is going to make you rich. And it's just stupid. Anyways, what is real in November is that Swift is going live with MX and, over MT, which is the new version of the messaging. It's the ISO 20022 messaging. Interestingly enough, within the MX standards on the document portal of Swift, there are things that tie directly into blockchain. So this is relevant, not just saying you're randomly going to get fucking rich from a digital asset, one of probably hundreds that's going to settle on top of ISO 20022 infrastructure. This actually is relevant because settlement place, DLT wallet, cash account, DLT wallet, network fees equals gas, Oracle equals trusted pricing, UTI equals tokenized transaction sequencing. This is all in the MX update that is going live. I think it's November 15th of this year. I think we did a full, I don't know how deep divey we got into this. My video here got pretty deep diving into this. You can watch this video. It's from May 12th. If you want to see everything that was kind of in that, you can go publicly find that documentation. It's on the Swift's knowledge center or knowledge portal. Literally go onto it and type in MX 2025, and you'll probably pop the same document up that I found. From theory to global integration, utility chains ready for prime time inside the 2025 Swift standards release. So there's the MX November 2025 release, which I have to have us update here and actually hyperlink it. And the MT 2025 release. Here's a Swift Knowledge Center. See if maybe we can actually, let me see if I can pull one of these up. So you guys know I'm not bullshitting you. That's funds MT to MX mapping. Let me see if I can find it now. Hold on. Knowledge Center. All right, so there's some more stuff that came out in July. I found this in May. This is kind of a waste of time going through here. I'm sure you guys can find this just like I did. Let me see if we have it actually linked. That's Standards MT. You guys don't want that. It's just the old one. Standards MX. Updates enable network fees and tokenization metadata to be passed between institutions. This system will now accept pricing from trusted smart contract oracles. All the stuff I said that was in that tweet. It's going to piss me off now that I can't find it. So let me try to find it while I'm sitting here. Just actually try to find it here. This is probably, no. I want to say it was more recent than this one. Yeah, here we go. Securities firms, tokenized assets, testing the underlying technology. Instead of a traditional cash account, the CBDC or your cryptocurrency will be kept in a blockchain address / wallet ID. Smart contracts and oracles. So all the stuff I just talked about. So this is the stuff that's actually going live. Standards MX, November 2025. Swift's stuff is usually fairly dry, but this, like I said, everything that was in that tweet that I pushed out, yeah, it's all there. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I was kind of rambling there at the end. But if you think you're going to get rich every time somebody posts ISO 20022 or that your individual digital asset has this ISO 20022 halo around it, good luck with that, because it has nothing to do with your digital asset. I guess it kind of does as a really stupid way of getting around semantics, but at the end of the day, ISO 20022, it's a messaging standard update. It certainly is preparing everything on kind of this level playing field for messaging for things like distributed ledger technology, everything else. And for entities that do have that meet the compliance, like platforms that meet the compliance of ISO 20022, they can certainly add payments instructions on top of that messaging, and settle with whatever they want to settle with, whether that be a cryptocurrency or whether that be fiat or that be whatever. It's literally the whole point of level playing field and Internet of Value is being able to do whatever you want with whatever you want to do it with. That doesn't mean that some random person on Twitter telling you that your digital asset is the ISO 20022 chosen one. It kind of defeats the purpose. It literally defeats the purpose of what's actually happening. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit longer. Huge Hedera news in AI. I think it's being slept on right now. Actually, let me mention real quick. So we just did a podcast, which actually was a really good one for those of you guys that stayed here until the end of this. We just did a podcast that had multiple different networks. So we had... we were going to have Quincy on from XDC. I know he had conflicts, so he wasn't able to make it. But we had Hashpack, obviously Hedera's biggest wallet, 98% of monthly active users. Algo wallet, I'm sure, is the same thing for Algorand. Stargazer wallet from Constellation, and Joey wallet from XRP Ledger. I know a lot of people are excited about Joey wallet. So coming from the same group from XRP Cafe and First Ledger. So Adam and Chris and all these guys that have kind of been really driving forward the retail arm of XRP adoption. I actually listened to about 40 minutes of this. I was going to do this video earlier, but ended up just getting kind of hooked into this. It's always really cool to get different insights across different actual community grassroots leaders. So yeah, check this podcast out. I thought it was a good one. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Thanks. Bye.